and welcome to the DIY Photo Organising podcast, focusing on topics to help you with your photo management. I'm Fiona from Photo Helper.
And I'm Chantal from Photos in Order. Hi Fiona, how are you?
Good afternoon, good morning, and good day. How are you?
Good.
Well, I feel like it's morning for us now, but anyone could be anywhere at any time. So
That's right.
just throwing that out there.
So today, we thought we're going to talk about the most common roadblocks that people hit when they work with their photos, be they printed or digital, doesn't really matter. But there are some very typical roadblocks that we have heard over the years and, of course, also experienced ourselves.
Mhm.
We're not we're not those magical people who never have any issues with their photos, not at all. We do exactly know uh, all about the struggles because we have gone through it all ourselves and we keep going through it. And there are roadblocks, they can appear, then we fix it, we get through them, and they can reappear later on because, as we know by now, photo management is an ongoing thing. It's not something that's done in one rainy Sunday afternoon.
Mhm. Don't we wish?
Yeah, those projects can take weeks, months, sometimes years, and those roadblocks can be overcome. And we thought we would share 10 most common roadblocks and what we would do about them, what we think might be a solution to overcome them.
Exactly. Absolutely.
You want to start with the first one, Fiona?
All right. So, 10 common roadblocks that we see. So, number one, knowing where, not knowing where to start.
Hmm.
So, um, we put this one first because it is a very common roadblock, and people have grand ideas. They have deep desire to do something, and it really is a struggle, and it can just be quite debilitating as to, the overwhelm, um, and the reality of what they've got in front of them, and just not knowing where to start. So, our help for you, if you're in this category, is really have a think about why you're doing what you're doing. The deepest um, core reason why you're wanting to get something done. And we have talked about knowing your why, and this is our golden rule number two. Second to backing up our photos first, and then golden rule number two is to really address this issue of why, this question. And um, we've addressed this recently, actually, in episode 106. And so you can have a look through some details and explore this further. But really, our heart behind giving this one as our top common roadblock is to really unpack why you're doing this. What is underlying the purpose for you to even think, I want to do something with my photos? And so it really is, it sounds like it's quite a simple answer, but it is the key to moving forward. It is absolutely the key to moving forward. And the clearer you are, the more you bring that back into your mind and your thought as little hurdles come along the way, um, it truly is the the key to getting through that and actually moving forward and getting to completion. And we've seen this over and over again when we have people call or we talk about this with our professional community. When we know what the person's doing and why they're doing it and what the heart behind it is, we can become really clear and then stay on track and get a really clear path through to a finished result. So, really encourage really think about it, talk with some friends, look at with a professional, um, go for a good walk, do some soul searching, like really understand what it is that you want to do and why. And then that can definitely help you look at what to do next.
Mm, yeah.
That's number one.
As you say, it sounds very simple, and if you feel a bit disappointed, um, it's our experience. Uh,
Mm,
yeah, we highly recommend to go deep there.
yep.
Another very common roadblock is the sheer overwhelm, the amount of photos that we have, and that there are pictures everywhere, basically. And remember, we're talking um, in most of those points that we're going to address today, we're talking about digital and print photos. It goes for all. Um, so we have mainly way too many digital photos these days, but in all honesty, the experience has shown that most people also have way too many prints still. And we might have our own ones, we might have inherited boxes and boxes of photos, and they're just everywhere. And so, where to start? Again, it goes into similar um, sort of question, and that's why our answer is similar to that. If you have too many photos and they spread out all over the shop, again, go back to your why. Think about your goals. What do you want to achieve? Do you want to make photo books? What sort of photo books do you want to make? Are they for a person? Are they about a theme? Are they about trips you did? Whatever. And it doesn't have to be photo books only. I'm just using this example because this is a very common goal of many, many people. They want to create books. That's part of their why, but it does go deeper. So we also want to come back to something we have mentioned in a previous episode. Uh, and when you look at our five golden rules, we sort of say, okay, golden rule number one is back up, number two is knowing your why, and then number three is creating a hub, and then number four, sort and organize. And that's where the whole decluttering as well is part of. And then five, do something with them. Now, this sounds like a lot of work when you do it, when you follow that sequence, when you organize first and then choose later what you want to do all those projects that you might have in mind. And we did recently talk about a different approach, basically from like work backwards. And which way you choose is very personal choice, personal preference. Sometimes it can also be a time issue. If you want to create a photo book as a gift for an anniversary, let's say, and you're on a timeline, you might not have the time to, you know, go through all that backlog, through thousands of photos, to sort and organize them, to declutter, and then to do your project. That takes too much time and it might be too overwhelming. So maybe you prefer the other way and you go through your photos and you choose what you need for that project and you work backwards. So basically, in a digital world, um, some people have started to use that as well. Let's say you have um, you're using an Apple iPhone and you can love hard your photos. So some people have now started to love hard photos, that's their favorites, and then just to ignore the rest or even delete the rest. So you work backwards. I hope that makes sense. um, yeah, and that's a different approach. And remember, there's no right or wrong. You have to find what works for you.
Absolutely. And I think in the case of too many photos and pictures everywhere in a physical photo, if you've got photos in albums or loose photos still in packets or things like that, the same thing applies where you can say, okay, I want to make a photo book. Um, And, this is the main reason for it, making a gift for a grandparent, say, then you can have all of those photos everywhere and too many photos and photos, either digital or printed. And yeah, with that same principle of just flicking through the pages and taking out or scanning, or love hearting the ones you want. And so it just means that that first step of organizing everything to then make that book, it doesn't have to happen that way if that's a roadblock for you.
Just a little tip, if you do work backwards, let's say for one, for a specific project, but you know that you will actually go back and do the whole organizing step. I would recommend to just, when you pull out photos out of sequence, out of order, like if they're in a packet or something, to maybe leave a little placeholder there. That can be an index card or a post-it or something, so that you know where that photo belongs.
Absolutely.
So, don't just pull out here and there and everywhere. If you want to go back and dive a bit deeper, because personally, some people wouldn't mind, but personally, that would do my head in. I hate. I need the chronological order. I want it together in context. So yeah, use placeholders.
Yeah. And I think I was probably similar to that too, Chantel, in the past, but I'm quite happy now to, throw caution to the wind and get that thing done. But one way, just talking about those placeholders, as a practical tip, you can get those little round circles, sticky colored circles that you can just buy a little strip, and they're really good. You can have different colors, and then you can just, put a little, if it's an orange little circle, put that in the little placeholder on the cellophane or something like that. Put one on the back of the photo and just write number one, number one. And then the next time you take a photo out, you put another little orange dot and another little orange dot, and you do number two, number two. One on the album where you took it out from, and one on the back of the photo. So then you can easily match those up and put them back. Mm.
Already we're in way too much detail, probably, but
Yes, but anyway, we can't help ourselves. All right, moving to number three. Um, Number three, software. Okay. So another roadblock is software options. So sometimes this can be a real problem when we're thinking, what do I do? What do I use? How do I do this organizing thing? We actually have a podcast, episode number 59, which was what photo management software is right for me. That could be something to have a look at in more detail. But just think about the criteria that you need, about your own skill level, your ability to learn new technical programs, your savviness as far as that goes, whether you want a subscription-based program, even if you want something independent outside of a proprietary type program. And also ask some professional, advice from someone. The Photo Manager's website has, find a pro in your area. That could be something just to get a one-off appointment with someone to just sort of talk about your options from that kind of point of view. That is definitely something that we would say could be helpful for people. But hopefully that's some tips on breaking through that roadblock if that's one that you're up against at the moment.
Mm-hmm. And yes, that can be very confusing, but I like the idea to ask a photo manager because they've done the research. They know what's out there. They know the pros and cons. And they've basically done it for you. So it might be worth a try.
And just in that, if you do ask someone's help, just make sure that they're listening to what your needs are. Like everyone in any profession, I think if they like their particular solution for themselves, that's great but not every solution fits every situation. So, we really encourage you to make sure you've been heard and your situation, you find a solution that fits for you and your family and your needs, because they are all different. So yeah, just make sure that that is on your list of questions, and make sure you feel that when if you do get help in something. Yeah.
Okay, so number four, the next roadblock has to do with scanning, and this is a question or a roadblock that we often get. It's about the decision of whether you want to scan print photos or negatives. What should we scan?
Mhm.
And again, we do have an episode on that specific question, which is number 95, what to do with negatives. And the short answer is we do recommend to scan and digitize the negatives provided they are in good condition. So obviously, if you've got a print and a negative, and the negative is moldy, yeah, by all means, print or digitize the print. But if the negatives are in good condition, you will get much better quality when it's scanned properly. And I've had that done. I've had scans done myself of prints, and then later I found the negatives, and Fiona actually scanned them for me with camera scanning equipment, and the difference is astonishing. It is so much better. I can highly recommend that if you can. Not everyone can, especially if you do it yourself. You will not have a camera scanning setup. Um, that's not realistic. There are scanners, especially for little machines to scan negatives. Um, there are flatbed scanners that can scan negatives, so there's a whole big thing behind it. But principle, the answer is yes, scan the negatives if you can.
Yes, exactly, if you can. Um, all right, moving on to number five, which is the right scanning equipment? Talking about scanning. So when we're looking at scanning, so now this is with either negatives or with photos. And now we're moving probably more into the photo question of, say you've made a decision to do some scanning, and what do you need to use and buy or outsource. So this is a common roadblock, because to make a photo book, if that's your goal, and you've got these photos scattered everywhere, then somehow you've got to get it into a digital format so that you can print the book. So it really is a very common issue for people. And the answer to this one, it does, again, we do have some um, episodes, number 71, which talks about realistic time frames when scanning, and also number 13, which talks about scanning or not to scan. Um, but really, some of those options are looking at what you're scanning, if the photos are in albums, if they're loose and they can be taken out, whether or not they're fragile, looking at your cost, and also your learning curve of different software and things like that. So there are a few different choices and options to think about. Um, but again, when you're clear on what it is that you want to do, and you know it's just taking one step at a time through this decision. And this is where, at the end of this episode, we'll talk about procrastinating on all of these decisions. But it's definitely, these are the areas that you can consider when making your purchase. And then just go through the list. Okay, I don't need that kind of a scanner, but I do need, because I've got these really delicate things, I need to be able to put them down flat, not just scan them through a high speed scanner where they sort of feed through. So once you know what you're dealing with, it's just a matter of going through that sort of, process of decision making on those topics that I've just mentioned. Make your decision and go for it.
Gone away.
Scan away.
Good. So, the next roadblock is also very common and has to do with scanning as well, because once you have scanned those photos, or if you have outsourced the scanning, it doesn't really matter what to do with them, how to archive them. Should they go into albums? Should they go into boxes? And if so, what sort of boxes do we need, so that we can, preserve the photos, the prints long term, so they're not getting damaged. And again, we have our episode 88, which talks about tips on photo archiving, that covers that whole topic in much more detail. It A big thing is it will come down to personal preference how you will archive your prints. I've had clients, they wanted boxes, and then they changed their mind because they thought about it, and they are a family that actually likes to pull out a book and look through it. So instead of archiving the photos in boxes and shoving them to the back of a cupboard, we bought simple slip-in albums. They each hold about, I think, 300 photos. It's no big deal. It's, yes, it takes some time to put them back. If you want to label them as well, of course, boxes tend to be a bit quicker, but it comes down to preference. And also, of course, time, budget, and space. As you can imagine, if you've got a whole photo archive, and we're talking of printed photos, of course, here, and let's say you've got 2,000 prints, and you want them in slip-in albums that each take 300 photos, you will have, probably more than one level filled of your bookshelf with those albums. Not everyone has that space. They also are heavy, so boxes are usually cheaper and quicker. It takes far less time to do, but you do you, and what works for you.
Mm, fantastic. All right, number 7, we have a roadblock about photo books. Do I want my photos in books, and in which order? How do I want to, what do I put where, and how many books? And is it going to be chronological, or do I just want one book with everything in it? So this one about making a decision around photo books. Um, and it's really can be a tough decision because it feels very permanent. Like it feels like it's a big decision to make. And once I've made it, then I need to, stick with that. But again, we do come back down to our why. And I think with photo books, this is the beautiful thing. There's a lot of different providers around the world, and some that are quick, and the quality is not as good as the ones which are, take some time and a bit more handmade. And it really does depend on what your purpose is, what if it's a really special gift, or this is something that you just, you went on a holiday with some friends for a long weekend and you just want everyone to have a copy of those memories, and it can be something quick and easy like that, or it could be, a lifetime and generations of photos that we're dealing with. So, there is no right or wrong. I think this is really important when you come up against this roadblock. Um, you know, Whether they all sit beautifully looking on the shelf, and in an ideal world, if that's what you can do and you've got the time and you love creativity, and then please, have your expression of creativity and do these beautiful bounded yearly books, and they're gorgeous, and they really are, um, an option for people in a chronological order. Um, but the freedom to do whatever works is really where we're coming at with this roadblock. We want you to feel liberated in your decision to just the next 100 love-hearted photos that you have anywhere in your collection with any kind of a theme, if it was just the family or one of the kids or something like that, print it, see what you think, and then just I mean, look at cost and time and things like that, but just have fun with it. I think we can try to get these things perfect and think that this is a one-time deal. But there's some inexpensive options out there for books, and there's some expensive options out there for books. So try something, give it a go, and then um, yeah, I think this one is really an encouragement of making some decisions and feeling like it's okay if you change your mind
Mm,
later.
mm.
So that's the advice on that one to try with your photo books, because they're beautiful in a book when you can flick through and see them. Especially our digital world these days, it's hard to, we can flick on the screen, but it's replacing it with a book. It's not the same. So we would encourage you to do that.
Yes. And as a little side effect, every printed digital photo counts as a backup. There you go.
Exactly. Bonus.
Okay, moving on to our number 8 roadblock, which is how to figure out dates of photos if they are undated. So, playing detective here. And this often happens with printed photos, especially with older photos. Like if we have inherited photos, for example, it can happen and it will happen 100% that you will find photos that you have no clue when they were taken. And it can also happen with digital photos, though, because digital photos can lose their capture date. For example, if you um, download a photo from a WhatsApp message, for example, or from Facebook, it will have lost its capture date. So you don't know the exact date. You can probably guess more or less where it would belong, but it's basically lost it. Now, there are a few, I don't know whether tricks is to say the right word for it, but there are a few things you can do, especially with prints that have no date. And we do cover that in our episode 6, where we talk about sorting and organizing prints, and also in episode 31, that talks about what to do with inherited photos. Um, so, one thing is just to reassure you, especially in the printed photo pile, when you sort prints, you will come across them. And we do recommend to have a pile for uncertain, um, for photos that you can't put on a pile, whether you sort by date or by theme. And if you're unsure, you will have a box or a pile unsure. And we recommend to have that, not overthink it. And in the end, further down the road, it will be easier to put them where they might belong and to make a decision. So this is one thing. And again, it comes to personal preference again. If you're somebody who wants to sort everything chronological, it can become a bit tricky. So you might have to widen the perspective a bit, for the lack of a better word, and maybe say, okay, I know roughly, I can guess which decade, for example, this photo was taken. And then it goes into a pile like approximate. Or you decide that you, rather than date related, you will have a theme or a topic and not be bothered so much about the date. So again, there is no right or wrong, and you can mix and match. If most of your collection you want it chronological, but some things you want by topic, that's fine. There's no right or wrong. You can do whatever works for you, um, and and what suits your goal. Again, it comes back to the why, and that might actually give you the answer. Is it important to know the date of that photo? Maybe it's not. So it's not a big drama, but yeah, it is fun though. I like to play detective. Hairstyles and clothes, and
Yeah,
it's good fun.
it is. It is. All right, number nine, we have do we tell one person's story or do we integrate a lot of different views? Now, I think I'm going to pass this one on to you, Chantel, because this was an example that we've talked about actually in another episode as a real life example of yours in episode 104. But can you share your experience with this one?
Yeah, that was that real life example. That was the photo book I created for my mom's 80th birthday last year. And I struggled a lot. So that was one. And then I also did another one for my oldest son, who, when he turned 18, and I struggled with some of the same issues or roadblocks. And it really was a roadblock. I knew I want to do that thing, and I just let it sit there for weeks, probably months actually, because I just couldn't make a decision. So we do know firsthand how it. And what I ended up doing, so I wanted to give her that photo book for her 80th, and I struggled. I wanted to tell her story, of course, but then I was thinking, oh, it would be nice, if other people might send a photo to as well, and maybe a little story, but then this just became way too overwhelming. So I said, no, I'm not going to do that. And then the next challenge was like, somebody who turns 80, you want to tell the story of their life. So obviously it starts when they're born with the parents and whatnot growing up. That thought I found, yeah, that's pretty easy to do chronological. But then the rest, at one point, it just started to become like somehow chaotic, I found it, even though it was chronological. And there were photos that I didn't know exactly when they were taken or in what context. So I changed from chronological at the beginning to theme based. And sometimes within the theme, I would go chronological, like with trips, for example. Um, but others not so much. They were sort of a random collection of photos. But it was a struggle, and I had to make a few decisions. And also, what I struggled with was the fact that, of course, I don't have all photos that represent her entire life. There were, for example, a lot of friends of her, current friends. I would not have photos of them. She doesn't even have photos of them because she doesn't actually take photos. So it's like, oh, I've got those gaps. It's not the complete story. And I just had to make peace with that and say, look, it's a gift from me with my perspective, with what I have. And yes, it's only part of her life, but it's a big part. And that's what I do, and she loved it. She has it on her sideboard in the living room, open, and everyone that comes, every visitor, they all look at the book. They all love it. She tells them the stories. It's really, it was a very special gift, but it
Yeah, it's beautiful.
again, uh, yeah, it doesn't have to be perfect, and sometimes we have to compromise, and there's no real right or wrong. Think of the end result, and that's the main thing. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's great. Really great example, Chantel. Thank you. All right, number 10, our lucky last, we have the common roadblock of I don't have the time and place to work on a project without interruption. So it's this feeling of I just sort of need my space and I need a big chunk of time and then I'll start. Um, so when it comes to this one as a roadblock, it's sort of like it's a bit of both worlds that we're going to address this one with. We 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 could suggest that you actually do take a big chunk of time, take a planned break if you're having a holiday break, and take that time and do a big chunk of work. If you're going to do that, really listen back to this episode a lot. Like, it's likely that if you take yourself a week, many of these roadblocks will come up within that week. And so it's possible that you get to the end of your allocated time that you've given up without interruption, and you really don't feel that you've made as much progress as you would have liked. So, being as prepared as you can, really being clear, that's an option if you are going to take, a block of time to work through, a particular goal that you want to get done. And the other thing with this one is if you can't get that time, or you don't want to do it that way, just being realistic. We've got two episodes, episodes 70 and 71, where we talk about realistic time frames. Um, but being able to do smaller bits regularly, I think that is definitely an option as far as, feeling like you need a big chunk of time without interruption. It's kind of like, if you're redoing up a bathroom, it's lovely if you can just sort of have a set time aside, redo the big makeover, and then it's all lovely and finished. But sometimes that doesn't work for people, so they have to do the basin, then they have to do the tiles on the floor, then they have to do the shower, then they have to do the windows or whatever, little bits at a time, and it still gets the job done. So it's a matter of what's available to you, and what you're really able to do and achieve. And so to use that as a bit of a planning, to help you get through that roadblock. Maybe think if you really need the big bathroom renovation, or if you just need to do little updates as you go along. And with that, you can get a photo book done. You can, chip away at different things and get these tasks done. It is manageable. And if you can plan a chunk of time and that works for you and your family and your situation, then just think ahead of what roadblocks might come up in your week, or however long you're taking, a weekend or whatever, to get something done, and really prepare so that you can make the most of that time.
Mm. That it. That's it. That's the
That's
10.
it. That's our 10. But we do have a little suggestion, because at the end of this, it all comes down to, again, procrastination. I mentioned this a bit earlier. But if you have a look at these two episodes, recently 106, and again, before that, we talked about when we first did our survey, is episode 49. We both of those dedicated to procrastination. And we address these and other things as well in there. So that is some sort of additional support and help that we would suggest maybe having a little listen to help you through if you come across any other roadblocks as well. But otherwise, it's common, it's normal, it's very, very natural for these roadblocks to happen. It's not the end of the world, and you definitely wouldn't be the first person that has come across these. They can derail us, like they really can derail us, and it can be days, weeks, months, definitely years, where we've been like, oh, I just still haven't done it, and I've picked up that podcast of these girls again, and I'm going to listen to it again, and hopefully that motivation will help me. So we do know that these roadblocks come. So you're not alone. It's why we do these kind of episodes, to really encourage you to plug your way through, to keep going, because the end result is really worth it when you get that final project completed, or you make progress on the ongoing maintenance of your photos as well.
Yeah.
Encouragement, encouragement, encouragement.
And we would love to hear back from you, whatever project you have. We always love to hear stories from our listeners, how you go. And we're learning from you too. So, yeah. And also, when you mentioned the episodes about the procrastination, if um, listeners, you want to read more about the procrastination or rather how to stop it, you can download our free e-guide from the website. Um, and also, don't forget that we have partnered with some professional photo organizers who offer online courses about different topics. And we do encourage you to have a look what's on offer. These are really good courses that we've done ourselves. We highly recommend them. And there are some more basic courses, for example, in the Photo Managers Academy that you can access, and you'll find it all on our website, and also courses that go into much deeper detail for certain software like Lightroom Classic or Apple Photos and things like that. So go and check those out if you want to work on those things yourself, even scanning. There there is lots and lots of courses. So check them out and see whether there's any amongst them that you might find helpful. And, as we said before, you can always reach out to a pro. There is a directory, you will find that as well. And let us know what your wishes are, what you want us to talk about, what topics you find challenging. We have a wish list, so simply go on that wish list and let us know, and we will answer your question directly by email, but we might also make an episode out of it. Not always, but often we do. And of course, as mentioned before, we do like feedback. And if you can leave us a review on wherever you listen to the podcast, that'd be really, really great. We love that. Yeah. So I think that's it for today. I'm Chantal from Photos in Order.
And I'm Fiona from Photo Helper. So thanks again for tuning in. And as always, happy photo organising.